just to clarify, this is an information session about the process of congregations sponsoring Afghan refugees. And Catholic Charities is looking for congregations and other organizations to assist in resettling approximately 300 Afghan refugees here in central Missouri. And so at the November session meeting, Martha Means from Catholic Charities made a presentation to us, and the session asked me and Bob Swanson to attend an information session that Catholic Charities was sponsoring about the process of refugee resettlement. So we attended that. Friday was a week ago. It was a day-long session. It was very informative. And so the purpose of this today is just to share with you a little bit about what we learned. And also the purpose is to kind of gauge interest in the congregation about taking on this mission. This is a short-term mission. It'd be about 6 months in duration. There is a financial component to it. Sponsoring organizations are asked to contribute between $1,500 and $4,000 to resettle a refugee family, depending on the size of the family. Really discouraged from contributing more because, as they explained to us, they want to make sure that the refugees become financially self-sustaining as quickly as possible, and also because sometimes different size gifts to different refugee families can kind of create tensions in the refugee family. But the main work is more in terms of volunteer time and energy. And so that's what I want to talk to you a little bit today about. So the Catholic Charities, they identify about 15 different tasks that need to be performed by a sponsorship group. And so that means that probably we're talking about a minimum of 15 to 20 people who would work as a team to sponsor a refugee family. And the work includes, well, it kind of changes as the refugees arrive and then as they get settled into the country. Beforehand, a team would be responsible for gathering furnishings and gathering household supplies for the place that they're going to live in. The day of their arrival, the team would be responsible for meeting the refugee family at the airport, greeting them, getting them to their home, and then within 24 hours, providing an orientation basically to living in a Western-style dwelling. So we don't know whether the refugee family will have any experience with, say, for instance, with household appliances and other things that we take for granted. But that orientation would be provided, how to use gas or electric stoves, and then a number of other safety things as well. How to dial 911, what is 911 for? How to operate a smoke detector, or what is the smoke detector for? What is a carbon monoxide detector for, and things like that. The next things that would happen would be that the team would assist the refugee family in applying for benefits initially, so SNAP or TANF benefits. The team would be responsible for assisting the refugee family with enrolling children in school. The team would be responsible for assisting the refugee family, those who are adults, in applying for work. And the team would also be responsible for setting up initial appointments with a primary care provider for all of the members of the family. Also, the team would be responsible for getting the family members connected to English as a second language services. That's another interesting thing. Prior to the arrival of the family, we won't have any idea about their English-speaking capabilities. So there may be one or more members of the family who speak English or not. We simply don't know. And then within the first 60 days, there's a cultural orientation, orienting the refugee family to life in American society. Catholic Charities does parts of that, but that's basically part of the team's ongoing work, is to help orient the family to what does it mean to live in the United States? Standards for dress, for hygiene, for behavior out in public and things like that. Just kind of things that we take for granted because we lived here our whole lives, but that someone coming from Afghanistan wouldn't necessarily know about. let me stop there, and I'm gonna ask Bob Swanson if he would. Do you have anything to contribute or anything to add to? Okay. And so, yeah, for the purpose of those who are watching, uh, since Bob wasn't mic'd, Bob added that it may be that a refugee family that we are assigned is already here in Columbia, so we wouldn't necessarily have to greet them at the airport and get them settled into housing, but all of those other tasks would be our responsibility. Yeah. So I'll take questions, and for the benefit of people who are watching online, I'll repeat the question back so that everybody can hear it. I think, actually, Janet was first, I think, and then Betsy. Go ahead, Janet. Yeah, so good question. So the question is, say more about assisting the family with applying for benefits. If we've never applied for these benefits before, how would we know how to help somebody else apply? So each family will have a case manager that is an employee of Catholic Charities. And so that case manager will work with us to work with the family to help them apply for benefits. The major thing, though, I think is translation. Is helping them understand the forms that they are filling out and helping them to understand the process. And Catholic Charities makes available to us a language app. I can't remember the name of the app, but there are language translation services that are available for us so that we'll be able to help them make sense of what it is that they are, the information they're being asked to provide and what it is that they're applying for. So, does that answer your question? Okay. All right. Betsy and then Joy. So, yeah, the question is, do we actually have to find the housing that they're going to stay in? At the meeting that we attended, we were told no, that Catholic Charities would locate the dwelling, and then our responsibility would be to furnish it and to supply it. So that's a little bit, it's a little bit different than the written information I received from Catholic Charities, but that was what we were told at the meeting on Friday. Well, okay, so the follow-up question was, is there a need to secure transportation like a car? So, no, but if they live in an area where there's public transportation, it would be our responsibility to teach them how to use the bus. And if they are going to apply for a driver's license, it would be our responsibility to help them with that driver's license application process and the process of getting enrolled in in driver's training. Joy. Okay. So the first question is, will Catholic Charities do training for us before we undertake this obligation? Yes. And what they will also do is people who volunteer to serve on a team will have to go through a background check, and then we'll also have to be oriented to Catholic Charities standards of care for refugees, and we'll have to sign a statement pledging that we will abide by those standards of care. So so we'll be vetted, and we'll also be trained if we decide to go forward with this. So the question is, what is the financial commitment and how would we meet it? It's between $1,500 and $4,000 per family. It'll depend on the size of the family that we would be matched with. And I think it's up to the session how to meet that. If the session wants to, say, solicit donations, or if the session wants to tap restricted funds. I'm not sure if the mission budget has discretionary funds in it right now that could be applied for that or not, but I could find out about that. So that's a good question. What does that pay for the initial rent? Okay. We think that it pays for the initial month's rent. Yeah, Charlie. So the question is appliances, and not just say refrigerator and stove, but computers and other such things. Uh, our understanding is that it'll be a furnished apartment that's provided for them. That uh, we won't have to provide appliances. We'll have to provide beds, maybe tables and chairs, cookware, and things of that nature. And then mainly, especially if they've lived in a rural area and are not familiar with Western appliances, teaching them how to use them. I don't know about computers or. Okay, so follow-up question is, what about insurance, having renter's insurance in an apartment or homeowner's insurance in a home? I don't know the answer to that question, so that's I'll have to get an answer for you for that. And then for those of you who are online, Bob followed up that Catholic Charities has a large warehouse with furnishings in it, so it would be our responsibility to get those furnishings to the house, but not necessarily our responsibility to come up with them to begin with, unless I suppose there's a run on maybe a particular type of furnishing. Yes, Diana. So the question is a flat amount to start with, 1,500 to 4,000. What about ongoing expenses? I do remember this doesn't quite answer your question, but I remember that Catholic Charities has credit cards. You can check out a credit card, and say if you're taking a family member to a doctor's appointment, you can use that credit card for a copay and then return it to them. But I think that the goal really is to get the family towards self-sufficiency as soon as possible, so that they'll be able to pay within not weeks, but certainly within months, that they'll be able to pay their utilities and pay their rent. So part of the process is working with them on job applications, on developing a resume, and getting them employed as quickly as possible. Bob, do you have? Okay. So each family member gets a stipend. Our 1,500 to 4,000 is added to that, and then there are other things to help cover their expenses while they're getting up on their own 2 feet. Yeah. Janet, go ahead. Each family member has been vaccinated for COVID, uh, and I believe that process of like childhood immunizations, that has been ongoing on the basis that they're being held at right now. That's my understanding. Is that your understanding? Yeah. Other questions or comments? Yes. Okay. So the public library has ESL materials, and if you're a member of the library, materials for learning a second language. And yeah, that brings up just some facts about who we can expect. They told us that the two most common languages in Afghanistan are Pashtun and Dari. I believe it's Dari. So Pashtun is spoken by the Pashto people, which is the largest ethnic group in Afghanistan, And Dari, I think, is a dialect of Farsi, which is the language that's spoken in Iran. And there's a critical shortage right now of Pashtun and Dari translators in the United States because, just in a matter of months, you've got 100,000 people brand new to the country. So that's really taxing the ability of translators. So yeah, I think anything that if we decide to do this, I think anything that we could do to learn some basic words or phrases would be good. Yeah. Yeah, Charlie. Yeah, so the question's about religion. So the overwhelming majority of Afghans are Muslim. So I think our role in that is to, in terms of religion, is to get them connected with the Islamic Center and with the local mosque. Yeah. Yes. So the question is, do we have any control over when we might first engage with a family? And the answer is no. That we can expect, if the session signs off on this and we commit to this as a congregation, we could expect 24 to 48 hours notice. Or it may be the case, the goal is to sell 300 by the end of the year. So it may be like the case that what Bob described earlier of adopting or sponsoring a family that's already here. That's right. Yeah. So that's a good point. Probably by the time that it'll take to train us and to run background checks means that we're not going to. That'll probably put us after Christmas in terms of getting matched with a family. Yeah. Yes, Janet. There are families that are in Fulton, um, and I'm sorry. The question was how geographically spread out will the families be housed? So there are families who've been resettled here in Columbia. There are families that have been resettled in Fulton. I think and in Jeff City as well. I think the families resettled in Fulton are basically one large extended family, so that worked out really nicely. Um, so it, I don't know whether they would resettle folks like in a rural area. Um, you know, that would create a larger transportation burden, which I think the sponsoring group would be responsible for meeting that, for addressing that. Yes. So the question is, how many churches do they need in order to meet the need? They didn't state a goal of specific numbers, but I know that Missouri United Methodist, Sacred Heart, St. Andrew's Lutheran, the Fulton Rotary Club, um, and the Newman Center are 5 organizations that have committed to resettling refugees. And so, along with that, you don't necessarily have to be a member of First Presbyterian Church to be on this team. So if you have friends in the community that you think might be interested in participating in this kind of work, if the session signs off on this, I think feel free to invite them. They'd have to pass a background check and go through the training just like anybody else. But there was a person in our small group who was on the Newman Center team but wasn't a member of the Newman Center. So this might be a nice way to, engage other people in our mission. They did not recommend a size. They gave us the task list, but I think, judging by this, how involved some of these things are, I think a minimum of 15 people. I think really 20 people would be an ideal group of people. And then you wouldn't be, and then different people would be responsible for different things. And then part of that's to be determined by the needs of the family once they get here. So I think if we got 20, that would be great. Yeah. Other questions? Yes, Betsy. It's individuals, isn't it, Bob? Okay. The question was, is the 300-figure families or individuals? I believe it's 300 individuals. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So again, we won't know anything about their educational level or ages, but they did say to expect maybe multi-generational families, 3 generations, and larger size families than the typical American family. Yeah, they will be receiving. They have been vaccinated for COVID, and then they're receiving their other vaccinations on the basis that they're in temporary housing right now. So that when they get here, they should have documentation with them so that they can be properly enrolled in school. Yeah. Yes. No, I haven't. Just um, uh, I heard Reverend Brian's happy buck at Rotary the other day. He was happy that their family was here, and they were kind of getting involved. But I haven't heard anything about the specifics. But yeah, I'd be happy to check with them. That'd be good. We could probably learn from them. And again, to reiterate that each family will have a case manager, so we're not kind of in this alone. And if we have questions, we can. They encourage. Actually, the first thing to do is to ask the case manager. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes. So part of what we're doing here today is just to gauge whether there's sufficient volunteer interest. So I was going to say, after this meeting concludes, if having heard about this and having heard about the different tasks, if you're interested in volunteering, email me and let me know so that when the session reviews this on Thursday night, I can say, I've feedback from X number of individuals that they're interested in volunteering, and that'll help the session make a decision about whether or not to sign on to this. Yeah. Oh, Sally. So if you need 6 young men, just talk to Sally. So, and for those of you who are online, the observation was made. Say Sally is in charge of in charge of furnishing the apartment. That doesn't mean that she's going to be carrying a sofa bed up the stairs. She's going to get 6 strapping young men, she says, to carry the sofa bed upstairs for her. So, or women, yes. Yes, Betty. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the observation Betty made is a lot of the stuff's going to be happening during the day, and so uh, we'll need to be able to have volunteers who can work with the family during the day to help enroll kids in school or take people to doctor's appointments. So it's a question of, do I have time to contribute? Do I have money to contribute? Do I have uh, prayers to contribute? Or what is it that I can contribute to this effort? Other questions? Yeah, Garrett. That's right. We won't know anything about the size of the family or the ages of children or the ages of adults until maybe uh, 24 to 48 hours before they arrive, assuming that we are going to be paired with a family that's coming from somewhere else. If we're paired with a family that's already here in the community, we may get a little more information beforehand, but that's just speculation on my part. So, so we'll have to be and we'll have to be a little bit nimble in our preparations. Other questions? All right, so thank you for your good questions. Thank you for your interest. Again, having listened to this, um, pray about it. If you're interested in volunteering time or money or prayers for this endeavor, email me, and then also be praying for the session so the session can make a wise and sound decision about whether to take this the next step or not. And thank you very much. And let's close with prayer before we go our separate ways. God, we thank you that this is a land of relative peace and tranquility where people who are tired and oppressed can find rest and can thrive and flourish as people created in your image. We thank you that for ages and ages, your saints have welcomed the stranger and have given shelter to the refugee. And we pray that you would give us discernment and wisdom about whether this is a calling that you're calling us to. We do pray and thank you for those who have responded to this calling and for those who may yet respond to it. Guide us and direct us. Give us wisdom and discernment as we seek your will. In Jesus' name, amen. All right. Go in peace to love and serve the Lord.